On 2UE, the road to the grand final.
Balmain started the year in tremendous form with pre-season success in winning the Alfa Romeo Challenge in a replay of last year's grand final and taking out the Nissan Sevens. Canberra also showed signs of a promising year, winning the Westfield knockout. However, by the time the Winfield Cup kicked off on the 17th of March, both teams had been knocked out of the Panasonic Cup, the Tigers losing to a 12-man Parramatta side in Perth and the Raiders going down to Brisbane. Round one proved to be a great contrast between the two sides. Cronulla walloped the Raiders 32-14, while Balmain accounted for North's 21-14. Despite the Tigers' winning form, they'd lost Gary Jack, Steve O'Brien and Wayne Pearce through injury since their first trial match. Round two and Easter erupts at Leichhardt in one of the most controversial matches of the year. Balmain defeat Newcastle 22-20. The Knights had three players, Sinbind and prop Peter Johnson, sent from the field on a gouging charge, which was later dismissed. For Balmain, bad news. Gary Freeman is cited for gouging and, despite his constant plea of innocence, is suspended for 12 weeks. Adding to the injury list, Steve Edmund suffers a broken jaw. For Canberra, they lose their second consecutive match, going down to Souths 17 points to 2. Round three, somewhat of a turning point for both clubs. Ricky Stewart kicks a late field goal to give the Raiders their first win 9-8 over Eastern Suburbs. While Balmain show all the fighting characteristics of a good side, a depleted Tigers lineup travels to Lang Park and beats Brisbane 15-6. The club also announces the signing of English centre Andy Currier on the advice of prop Steve Roach. Round four and Canberra makes it 2 wins in a row, accounting for the Gold Coast 24-0. Balmain, though, suffer their first defeat. Parramatta, led by Peter Sterling, down the Tigers 18-16 at Leichhardt. A key to the Eels' victory was the containing of Ben Elias by Parramatta hooker Paul Taylor. Round five, and once again it's a case of one up and one down. Balmain lose again, this time to West 6-4, while Canberra make it a hat-trick of wins, handing out the first thrashing of the year to defending premiers Canterbury 34-4. Laurie Daly stars with a personal tally of 22 points.
Called by Ward. He plays at the wall as they get it to Gilbert. Gilbert's held up there. He threw the ball back. It's picked up by Henjack. Over the top it goes to Belcher. Belcher gets it back inside to Daly. He's over the line. Can he get the ball down? Try to Daly.
Round six and the big wet hit Sydney, with Canberra's match with Illawarra switched from Wollongong to Seaford Oval. From Sunday to Tuesday, the Raiders win 44-8 and Balmain put another nail in the Manly coffin, winning 9-8 at Leichhardt. So after 6 rounds, Balmain and Canberra are level in the Winfield Cup with 4 wins each, placed just 2 points behind joint leaders Souths and Brisbane. I'm Jim Angel.
On 2UE, the road to the grand final.
In round 7, the Green Machine gathers momentum, thrashing St George 42-4. However, Balmain's forward pack is out-muscled by Penrith as the Tigers lose their third match for the year 28 points to 8. To round 8, and Sean Edwards, playing his first match in the Tigers' colours, plays a starring role in their 12-2 victory over the Gold Coast. Another plus for the Tigers is the return of fullback Gary Jack from 10 weeks on the sidelines with a broken arm. Canberra rack up their 6th straight victory and move into outright third place, beating Manly at Brookvale 12-10. The first of the year's representative sides are selected, with Canberra supplying 5 players and Balmain 4. Leading the way is Raiders' 19-year-old lock Bradley Clyde. He picked to wear the number 13 jumper in the Sydney Origin side. Round 9, a day after the City Country fixtures, and the Tigers slip to the middle of a cluttered competition table. Canterbury beat Balmain 10-4. For Canberra, it's the exact opposite. Another big win, another big scoreline. The Raiders thrash Parramatta 41-16. Ricky Stewart cements his place at half ahead of Ivan Henjack and Kevin Walters with a 5-star performance. The New South Wales State of Origin team is picked. Under pressure, Gary Jack wins the fullback berth and Brad Clyde continues his rise, selected at lock. Round 10 comes and round 10 goes, with Balmain and Canberra both losing. The Raiders fall victim to the Knights in Newcastle by 10 points to 6. At Kogarah, Balmain gets stuck in the mud, fielding their grand final forward pack. They lose to St George 24-14. Andy Currier makes an auspicious debut, grabbing a try and kicking 3 goals. Round 11 sees wet conditions again the order of the day and sees Penrith put a dent in the Canberra hopes, defeating the Raiders 16-6. Balmain fare better though, getting back on the winners list with an 18-6 victory over Illawarra. In good news for the Tigers, their hard-working forward Bruce Maguire gets the call up to the New South Wales State of Origin squad. Round 12 and June the 18th is a red letter day for Canberra. They record their best win of the year to date. beating a full-strength Brisbane 27-6 at Seaford. For Balmain, they find themselves 4 points out of the 5 after going down to South's 10-8 at Leichhardt. So as round 12 is completed, both Canberra and Balmain could say they had not yet shown the consistency of a championship winning team. As the table stood, Canberra was in 4th place and Balmain 8th. I'm Jim Angel.
I say yeah, yeah. Ain't no catch, all you gotta do is dance to the Velcro.
On 2UE, the road to the grand final.
Round 13 is one Ben Elias will remember. He suffers a broken thumb and loses all chance of playing in the 3rd State of Origin match and of touring New Zealand with the Australian side. His lone consolation is that the Tigers score a hard-fought 10-6 win over Easts. In another hiccup for Canberra, Western Suburbs with Ellery Handley at the helm defeat the Raiders at Seaford 25 points to 22. Round 14 sees Canberra and Balmain both win. The Raiders defeat Norths 14-5, and Balmain proved too good for Cronulla at Leichhardt 28-6.
26 out alive, back to Roach. Oh, back to Jack, they're cutting them to shreds. He's going to score, Gary Jack. Magnificently thought out try, and all of a sudden the Tigers lead 8-0.
As Queensland complete a clean sweep of the State of Origin series, from Balmain, Paul Sirenen, Steve Roach and Bruce Maguire, and from Canberra, Gary Belcher, Mal Meninga and Bradley Clyde win selection in the 20-man Aussie squad for the New Zealand tour. Round 15, the gun sides meet but without their heavy artillery. At Seaford, Canberra take on Balmain with the international stars from their respective sides across the Tasman. Add to that list Gary Freeman and Brent Todd representing New Zealand and Ben Elias still injured. The match could not be taken as a true indication. But to Balmain's credit, they continued their domination over the Raiders, winning 18 points to 12. Glenn Lazarus is sent from the field on a high tackle charge and suspended for 3 matches. The record stood, that of the 16 games played between the two sides in 8 years. Balmain had won 15 times and Canberra just once. Round 16 and the rot sets in for Canberra as they drop out of the top 5 and Balmain force their way in, remarkably to equal 3rd spot as Brisbane hit the skids. Cronulla account for the Raiders 22-16, while Balmain give Norths a Friday night hiding at Leichhardt 32-0 as the Andy Currier-Tim Brasher centre combination hits top gear. In New Zealand, it's Roach, Clyde, Sirenen, Meninga and Belcher starring as Australia go 2 up against New Zealand. To round 17 and bookies ease the prices of Balmain and Canberra as both suffer defeats. In Newcastle, the Knights edge out the Tigers 20-12. The only bright spot, Ben Elias returns from injury. While minor premiers Souths make it 3 straight losses to the Raiders with a 22 points to 12 victory. Round 18 and another turning point, ironically in the corresponding round to the first part of the season. The Raiders back at close to full strength defeat Easts 14-10. And in a mini State of Origin battle, Balmain bounced Brisbane out of the top 5, winning at Leichhardt 24-6. The whiz Gary Freeman makes his return. Little did the supporters of both the Tigers and the Raiders know that round 18 was to be the beginning of their runs to the grand final. As the Winfield Cup stood, Balmain was in 4th place and Canberra 6th. I'm Jim Angel.
On 2UE, the road to the grand final.
To round 19, and it's time to stand up and be counted. At the Parramatta Stadium, the Tigers for the first time field their grand final lineup, but fight all the way to down the Eels 22-18. Remarkable as it may seem, or just coincidence, Canberra also field their grand final 13 for the first time, thrashing the Gold Coast 42-18. Round 20 and the march continues across Australia. In Perth, Canberra put paid to Canterbury's semi-final chances, winning 18-14, while at downtown Leichhardt, Balmain flexes its muscles in hammering Western Suburbs 40-0. The Tigers move to 3rd place ahead of Cronulla on percentages, Canberra to equal 5th. Round 21 at heart attack time for Balmain and coach Warren Ryan and a 10-all draw to Manly, but a Mel Cochran shot at goal, if successful just before full time, could have seen the Tigers miss the top 3. Canberra dropped back a few gears, but still beat Illawarra 16-6. To round 22, the final round, and it's all or nothing for both teams. Balmain with an all-important top 3 spot there for the taking. The Tigers give Penrith something to think about, winning 33-6. The match is marred, though, with the 21st minute send-off of Panthers' second rower John Cartwright. For Canberra, again it's sudden death against St George, a side which had prided itself on victories over some of the leading semi-final contenders, and after 25 minutes, it was the Raiders who looked like being the team to drop out of the finals race, down 10-0. But there was no panic. The forwards knuckled down and the backs did the rest, with Gary Belcher scoring 3 tries. At the end of the 80 minutes, Canberra had won 30-16. As night came and 22 rounds of dust had settled, Balmain were 3rd and Canberra 4th. The Raiders would meet the winner of a playoff between Cronulla and Brisbane, the Tigers to meet Penrith in the major preliminary semi-final. The bookies had posted Balmain ahead of Souths as favourites for the Winfield Cup. The Canberra price, though, was firming fast. I'm Jim Angel.
On 2UE, the road to the grand final.
To the semi-finals, and Saturday sees Canberra up against Cronulla, backing up from a midweek playoff to Brisbane. Try as they might, the Sharks had no answer to the Raiders' charge. Canberra took full toll of a tiring Cronulla defence to run out the winners 31-10. On Sunday, Balmain repeated the dose of 7 days earlier, beating Penrith 24-12. Among the stars for the Tigers, half Gary Freeman and hooker Ben Elias, Balmain was now just 1 match away from the grand final and a shot at erasing the memory of last year's loss to Canterbury. Saturday, September the 9th, and it was Canberra going into their 7th consecutive sudden death match, this time against Penrith. For the Panthers, it was to be a sad end to a promising year, going down 27-18. The Raiders had shown signs of buckling down 12-11 with 20 minutes remaining, but when every tackle and every run counted, it was Canberra who were deserving winners. After the match, in a move aimed to take the heat off the players, a media ban was placed on the Canberra side. On the field was where coach Tim Sheens wanted them to do their talking. In the major semi, it was a classic struggle with Balmain and Souths looking to realise a dream. It was to be the Tigers' day in a match that could so easily have gone either way. Played under intensive pressure and in intense heat, Balmain lifted themselves to a 20-10 win. The Tigers had made it and now would wait to find out their opponents. In the final, it was a case of one side on the way up and the other on the way out. Souths gave it their all, but could never head the Canberra side. Under criticism, the Raiders forwards responded with a committed performance, paving the way for a 32-16 victory.
Wallace from acting half, back to Lazarus. He's going horribly close to getting the ball down over the line. That's a try. That'll make it 30-16 with a kick adjacent to the post. So now the Canberra side asserting themselves. 5 tries, 5 goals, 30 points with a kick to come, and it'll be 32. Compliments of the booth of Balmain here at the Sydney Football
And so it
Stadium.
was. Canberra would play Balmain in the grand final. There had been many similarities throughout the year between the two sides, but on Sunday, September the 24th, at the Sydney Football Stadium, only one would be crowned Winfield Cup champions. I'm Jim Angel.
Well, it feels so right when you squeeze the tight